Hi guys, so we're slowly rolling into autumn and everything is about to get red and orange and beautiful and warm and fuzzy. It's also a really good time to visit the UK, especially if you don't like the extreme cold too much and if the country you're in right now is extremely hot. It's a great way to escape from that sweltering heat and take a break in the UK. It's also a really good time to visit the UK because the main summer break is over, which means it isn't the absolutely most crowded time in the UK. The peak season is over, which means that you won't be surrounded by insane crowds no matter where you go in the UK. Now that being said, one question I get asked a lot by friends, by families, by my extended family, which is you guys, is what to visit in the UK, which places should you see? Which is why I figured it was about time to make this video to help you. It's also going to be useful to you folks who are looking for jobs in the UK because now you'll know where you should take your first holiday when you finally make it to the UK. With that, I'm Ashika and let's dive in. Now, for starters, let's break this down. The UK comprises of 4 countries: England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland. So if you get a tourist visa to visit the UK, you can visit all of these countries. But remember, when you're filling out your form, you will have to check a little box for Northern Ireland if you want to visit it. For people like us who are in the UK with a BRP, we can't visit Northern Ireland whenever we want. We need a special visa for this. Now, with the UK comprising of 4 specific countries, you should remember that because it's 4 countries, there is a lot to see, and each of these countries boasts of something or the other which is spectacularly gorgeous, and you should definitely visit if you have the time. In today's video, we're specifically talking about the places to visit in England, and the next video will be Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland, because to be honest, there is just too much to cover in one video. Now, obviously, we can't talk about England without starting off with London. The thing to remember is that if you plan on visiting London, it makes sense for you to set aside at least 4 to 5 days just to explore London. Because to be honest, there is a lot to see and do. Now, what I'd recommend as soon as you get to London is getting onto a hop-on hop-off tour bus. It basically takes you around London while taking you across all the top tourist attractions. So you can basically hop on at any tourist attraction that is the bus stop and hop off at any place that you actually want to explore. And for the ones that you're not too keen on exploring all by yourself, you can just pass by in the bus. It's also worth checking out Buckingham Palace, the residence of King Charles, and watching the change of guard. As with most places in the UK, it's absolutely free to see it from the outside, but if you want to see the inside of the palace, you'll have to book tickets, usually a little in advance if you want to go inside. Next, you'll want to visit the iconic Tower Bridge. It's not London Bridge, which is the most common misconception. It's actually the Tower Bridge that is very famous, that you've seen pictures of. It's free to walk across the bridge and watch the opening and the closing of the bridge and get all the selfies and pictures you want. If time permits, you should also see the Natural History Museum, which houses some of the most massive dinosaur fossils you've ever seen, among other wildlife specimens. And then there's the Warner Brothers Harry Potter studio, where you can explore the actual Harry Potter set, buy Harry Potter memorabilia, because can you really say you've been to the UK if you haven't immersed yourself in the world of Harry Potter? Then there's the British Museum. The British Museum actually houses artifacts from across the world, maybe some from your countries. So if you've been wondering where they've been all these years, you might want to check here. Something else that's brilliant in London is the theatre. So while you're in the UK, I highly recommend you watch a play. The West End houses all the best theatres in London, with plays from Lion King, Hamilton, Frozen, Harry Potter and the Cursed Child, Tina Turner, just to name a few. And if you're a cricket fan, which if you're Indian you are, you must absolutely check out Lord's. As with some places in the UK, there is a dress code which doesn't allow flip-flops, torn or unclean clothing. So you might want to check out all the details before you set out. Now, what else is London famous for? Food, and cafes in particular. When it comes to London, it has some of the most Instagram cafes in the world, with baked goods to rival the French. To discover some quick great bites, you can visit Covent Garden, Portobello Road, Soho, Chinatown, Borough Market or Camden. And if you're in the mood to try out London's legendary nightlife, Soho is the place to be. Now, apart from London, if there's any other city you might want to actually consider in England, it would be Manchester. And especially if you're a football fan. Manchester is home to Manchester United and Manchester City, and the good news is you can book tours to actually go and check out all of these stadiums all by yourself or with a group of people and get some memorabilia as well. Now, the good thing about England is that there is so much more to it than just London. England also has some of the most stunning seaside towns and cities that you would have ever seen in your life. Now, if you can visit only one place by the sea, I definitely recommend you visit St. Ives in Cornwall, because to be specific, it has some of the most pristine turquoise beaches I have ever seen. I've actually been to quite a few beaches in the UK now, and suffice to say, none of them come close to St. Ives. There's also a bunch of shopping options and some gorgeous independent shops, art stores, and all the popular towns of Cornwall have tons of souvenir shops for you to pick up something to remember the place by. Other places definitely worth seeing include Penzance, St. Michael's Mount, and Porthcurno Beach. If you've got time on your hands when you visit Cornwall, I also recommend you visit Devon. If you'd like to explore a fishing town, I definitely recommend you explore Brixham and Port Isaac, which you might have seen from the series Doc Martin. If time permits, I also suggest you visit Dartmouth if you'd like to have a lazy lunch by the sea while crabbing. Visit Totnes if you'd like to explore some of the most gorgeous independent shops I've ever come across in the UK, against ancient castles and more recent coffee shops. And if you're a history lover, I definitely recommend you visit Dorset, which is really close to Devon, it's next door. And more importantly, Dorset houses the Jurassic Coast. So if you want to hunt for fossils, this is one of the best places in the world. Lyme Regis in particular is famous for its fossils, and every now and then, visitors stumble upon dinosaur fossils or ammonites. Then there's Corfe Castle, which is an ancient ruined castle that you can explore. Lulworth Cove and Durdle are definitely worth the visit for this view, and for all the pictures you can click, because it is unusual and pretty stunning if you ask me. But if all of these seem too far away, especially if you're staying in London, consider Brighton, which is really close by to London and has a pretty good beach. The only downside is Brighton is often very, very crowded. But if you're someone who doesn't mind the crowds at all, I'd say go for it. Now, while you're staying in the UK, something else you should definitely consider is the educational towns of Oxford and Cambridge. And you can typically choose either of them depending on where you live and which is closer. The two of these cities are home to the oldest and the most prestigious universities in the world. And the cities by themselves, trust me, are just something else. So while you're at these cities, visit the universities, eat gelato, go punting, go shopping. There's so much to do. Of course, you should also obviously visit the Cotswolds if you can, because they are some of the most picturesque little villages and towns that you would probably ever seen in your life. My personal favorite are Burton-on-the-Water, Castlecombe and Bibury, but to be honest, they're all stunning. And if time permits, do hop over to Windsor, very close to London, and if you'd like to visit Windsor Castle and Legoland. And then of course, if you are lovers of natural beauty and of outdoor activities, there's the Peak District and Lake District. Peak District, which is in central England, is the UK's oldest park and is a great getaway when it comes to biking, hiking, swimming and canoeing in nature across some of the most pristine landscapes. Now, if you really ask me, I think my absolute favorite holiday of all time in the UK was Peak District. I think simply because of its rolling hills and its untamed moors, very Pride and Prejudice and Wuthering Heights, if you get what I mean. If you're a water lover, instead consider Lake District. And here's a fact. The Lake District is often considered one of the most beautiful places in England. It's a national park in Cumbria which boasts of spectacular landscapes, quaint villages and shimmering lakes. Now, I know that was a lot, but I hope it gives you an idea of how much there is to see in the UK. And this was just England. In the next video, I'll be covering Wales, Scotland and Northern Ireland, so then you'll get the complete picture. And I'll also be talking about what you should be looking at if you're coming for 7 days, for 10 days, 15 days or even a month. I'll also discuss some of the top events that go on throughout the UK so you can plan your trip accordingly. And if you're looking for information on how to get that visitor visa and visit the UK, watch this.